Hey, ideators and entrepreneurs, CUNY Startups here. Welcome to CUNY and Beyond, the podcast dedicated to helping aspiring entrepreneurs through storytelling. We're excited to dive into the entrepreneurial endeavors of CUNY students, alum, and bonus entrepreneurs who are willing to share their valuable insights with you. Join us for today's show.
So today we are joined by Tinabeth Piña, who is, an alum of CUNY in a sense, in that she is currently there and has been with CUNY-TV for quite some time. But she has a long history of work, and she has a long history of perseverance in starting shows that mean something to her. So hi, Tinabeth, and welcome. Nice to meet you again. Full disclosure, I am a friend and colleague of Tinabeth's from a long time ago. So just to get that out there. So Tinabeth, give us a short version of your, I hate to say work history, but that's what it is, because I want people to hear how you started and how you got to where you are now. And then we'll jump in depth a little bit.
Yeah, just real quickly, I graduated from Lafayette College. From there, I got a job as an assistant to an executive producer at AOL Time Warner at the time, which meant I made copies, got coffee, delivered stuff. But what was nice while I was there was they had a partnership with New York One. So I used to just always go on my own time to New York One to learn how journalism was done, because what I always wanted my own TV show. That's what I wanted. I wanted to be on TV doing segments and shows that mattered. So from there, I just kind of kept jumping, became a desk assistant at WABC, became an associate producer at Good Day New York, till I finally got a chance to be on air with a channel called the Metro Channel. And from there is really where I honed in my on-camera skills and producing skills. And then was there for a few years, and then jumped to writing biography for A&E, hosting a show called Viva, which was like a Hispanic Entertainment Tonight. And then from there, I hosted a show on Oxygen, wound up at WABC as a reporter, which was fantastic for me because I started as a desk assistant. To come back years later as a reporter was a dream come true. And then, like many things happen, shows get canceled, you get laid off, and then you just kind of have to figure out how to build yourself up and come back again. So from there, I managed to get a job at Maury Povich, being an on-camera journalist talking about crazy crimes caught on tape. And then that kind of jumped to PBS shows, and then I wound up at CUNY. So it's kind of all over. Oh, and I hosted a show at Oxygen too. So it's like, it kind of just went all the way around from national and local, but I've always kept my eye on the prize. I kind of never gave up on what I wanted to do.
And tell us about what you wanted to do, because you now are the creator, host, producer, and writer for a show at CUNY-TV called LATiNAS. And this has been a dream of yours for some time. So tell us how you were able to sort of stick it out, persevere, to hang in there until you were able to get the show.
Yeah, no, it wasn't easy. The show is based on a thesis, an undergraduate thesis I did at Lafayette about the misrepresentation and underrepresentation of Latinos in mainstream television. And so I always figured, I'm like, if Hollywood, for all intents and purposes, is not doing it, then I'm going to do it somehow, some way. So I just wanted to do a show like an Entertainment Tonight in English on mainstream television. And a gentleman, Ray Blanco, used to do it at Channel 11 years ago. And it was kind of national and kind of local, but it just never picked up the steam that it needed to. So I took what I learned from him. And when the opportunity finally presented itself at CUNY-TV, I ran with it. We already had a Spanish language show here, so it was better to do it in English, which is what I wanted to do, and then just really niche focus it on women in particular, in this case, Latinas. I think it's still growing. I think there's still opportunities for national exposure. We've had a little bit. We had an agreement with PBS, which was nice. So our first couple of seasons aired nationally on PBS. And I think there's other opportunities for that. But it's always about keeping your eye on that prize and having patience. From the time I did the undergraduate thesis to the time that I actually got to create the show was about 25 years. It's a long time.
An overnight success.
No, never. It seems like it lots of times, but it's most definitely not. And it happened when it was supposed to happen, because when I really wanted to do it, I wasn't ready. I wasn't a great producer. I wasn't a great on-camera talent. Am I a great producer and a great on-camera talent now? No, I can always improve, but I'm much better now than what I was 25 years ago. If you have a dream, you have to just keep at it and not forget it, not take no for an answer, but be prepared when the opportunity presents itself, and then you run with it and do what you got to do.
I think that's a good jumping off point here. As I know, CUNY Startups works with young students who have an idea, who want to start a business. So to guide them through their entrepreneurship. I like to tell people, and I've been involved as a mentor with them for many years, but you take it from an idea on paper to a prototype. And what you just said was perseverance. it's not just the only thing they're doing, as it wasn't the only thing you were doing. You were doing other things while you were hoping for this show, which became LATiNAS, to kind of stay the course, but you were working on other things at the same time. What advice would you give for students who are, frustrated because it doesn't happen right away? What's the best advice you could give students who are looking to start their own company?
First things first, know your craft and be the best at your craft. Be the best writer you can be, the best researcher you can be, the best whatever you can be. Because at the end of the day, even if you aren't the best in the world, if you're trying to be the best, you're going to be up there, I think. Then you're always going to get no for an answer. And there's a reason why you get no. So you can't take it personally. You have to look at why these people are saying no, take a step back and figure out if it's something on their side that they're not seeing, or if it's something that actually is not good and you need to pivot. So learning how to be flexible and take criticism well, and looking at your project objectively and figuring out, okay, what is it that they're not seeing or that I'm not doing correctly that I can change whatever it is to make it meet what it needs to be. And sometimes it's really not anything. Sometimes it might be the other person's perspective, but oftentimes it's not. So you have to be willing to look at that with an objective eye. When people say no, I'm kind of like a roach in a way. I find a crack to come in. So if one person says no, but that other person's on the horizon, I'm going to try and figure out how to get to that other person so I can figure out a yes. There's always a way forward. And just kind of know, too, that oftentimes I think you are where you're supposed to be at that time. It may not seem like it, but it always turns out to be that things work out for a reason, and it was supposed to work out in that way. And just have patience, which is very, very difficult. Like I said, from me wanting to do a show like this to me actually being able to do the show was about 25 years. Most of you probably aren't even 25. So imagine that long amount of time. But I was very patient, and I kept myself busy, perfecting myself and learning, and also networking. That's another thing too. I think networking is very important. Everybody that you come across, you never know where they're going to be 5-10 years from now. And it's important to stay in contact with them. You don't have to be their best friend, but, stay in contact. You see what they're doing, see if it's something that might interest you or that you'll learn from, or they're going to know somebody who's doing something that interests you or that you can learn from or that benefits your startup and your product.
But that's something that you did because we kept in touch. Mm-hmm. When we were working at Fox together at Good Day New York, and whether it was a Christmas card, just a quick contact, hi, what's going on, hope all is well, that kind of thing, which also helps, I think, of what you're saying. It keeps you in the forefront of someone's mind. It reminds them that you're still out there. It reminds them of what you're doing.
Yeah. And, I made efforts to send Christmas cards. It's so much easier now. You can just text somebody or you can just follow up with an email. It's so much easier. I had to put pen to paper, which is not a hard thing to do, but it takes time to do that. I think every generation is going to say that, oh, you have it so much easier. You have it so much easier. But you really do nowadays. You really do. You can just about do anything that you set your mind to because you have all these innovations at your fingertips. And it's amazing what can be done. It's just a matter of you doing it. That's the biggest barrier is you.
You said something earlier in our conversation. You went out and did things on your own time. And time is very precious and important to all of us. We all just don't have one thing to do. What benefit do you feel that gave you? And how do you think our students could benefit and our folks listening to us from keeping that in mind?
Well, I think it strengthens your time management and your sacrificing skills. You have to sacrifice a lot of your personal time, I think, to get to where you want to go. And the only way to do that is to manage your time well. So if you're able to balance those two things, it's amazing the things that you can do. Like, for instance, for me, here now in my full-time job, my vacation time, say I have 5 weeks of vacation, which I don't, but if I did. So 1 week would be my personal vacation. The other 4 weeks, I'm not on vacation. I am shooting stuff for myself that have absolutely nothing to do with CUNY. And I've always been that way. I've always been operating in that manner because, even if you enjoy whatever it is that you're doing, for me, it's never enough. I always want more. I don't know why I think that way. I don't know why I operate that way, but I do. I've never been content with what's handed to me. So I think that's something that's very important. You have to do things on your own time, and that takes a lot of discipline. That takes a lot of sacrifice and a lot of drive. And if you don't have all those things put together, you're just not going to get to where you want to go. So I always call it the D's. You have the dream, then you have the discipline and the drive to achieve, if you will, that dream. And so a lot of your personal time is how you go forth and do that.
Do you feel you were ever held back by being female, being Latina? Do you think that in the course of your work that you felt that was an obstacle you had to overcome?
To be honest, no. To be honest, that's my superpower. That's my strength.
Yeah.
I am a child of affirmative action. I'm a child of diversity, equity, and inclusion. I got several positions. The reason why I went to college, I had good grades and I was a good athlete, but I know I fulfilled a quota. Mm-hmm. The thing is, once you're given that opportunity, it's what you do with that opportunity. And I think, with all these conversations around DEI and a lot of it going away, it's doing a disservice to a lot of people because on the one hand, say for school or for jobs or whatnot, you'll have these employers who are going to take in a female, a person of color, whatever the case may be, because they have to fulfill a quota back in the day. But at the same time, if that individual is better than the other people that are considered for their job and they prove it, then I think it's perfectly fine. So for me personally, it's never been anything that's held me back. I have an issue with people who oftentimes say I didn't get something because of the color of my skin or because of whatever. And that may be the case for some, but it is not the case for all. And lots of times people use that as an excuse. I didn't get it because of color of my skin or whatever. Oftentimes I think you didn't get it because you weren't the best one. And that's hard for people to accept. But I honestly think that oftentimes that is the case. But for me, it's been a positive attribute. I've never looked at it negatively. And interestingly enough, when I was in college, I accidentally found out that I was considered an at-risk student. And I was considered at risk for 5 reasons: female, Latina, athlete, commuter student, and not good enough SAT scores. They thought I was going to fail out. And I proved them wrong because when I found out, I got so angry. I was like, what? I was like, And I ended up giving the speech my senior year. So that I was so proud of myself because I was like, I'm going to prove you wrong, because all those reasons why you're considering me an at-risk student, for whatever reason, that's what they thought. It was what propelled me to succeed, and still does today to a certain degree.
We have known each other for a very long time, and I have never known you to back away from a fight in the sense of, no, you're not going to cancel my show until I have a chance to do ABC. You've never stopped moving forward. You've never stayed in one place. And I want to get to your other show that you do also on your own time. But you've also been a role model for so many young women. I know you lecture a lot. I know that you sit on panels a lot, and you do that. And I think that you're a role model for young women who may feel that they are shunted aside because of the color of their skin, and because they're female. One other thing I wanted to touch on while we're talking is your program called Globe Scholars, which you start. How long have you been doing that now? I'm trying
I shot the pilot back in 2018, and so that started airing in 2019. So 6 years.
Wow. Yeah. So tell us about that. That was a passion project of yours.
Yeah.
You love to travel.
I do.
Absolutely. You love to travel. You'll travel at the drop of a hat. Really, I have to go an hour away, but you're like, yeah, let's go. So tell us how that got started and where it is at this point, because that's something that you do on your own time, in addition to working at CUNY-TV.
It's not easy. It's really, really hard. I have a full-time job, and that's like an other full-time job. But I brought that upon myself. I really enjoy traveling. And I saw on social media how there were like a lot of travel influencers who had no journalistic background whatsoever. And, they'd be out in a bikini saying, I'm in Bali. Look how much fun this is. And I was like, okay, that's nice and all. You're pretty, you're cute, but I'm not learning anything from this. And so what I started doing was something called travel minutes. Started doing them on my own. I go on vacation with a phone, you can shoot whatever. So I just started shooting them. And I was like, oh, how cool would this be just to have a show about travel? But there's a lot of travel shows out there. And you don't see travel hosts that look like me at all. Mm-hmm. You have your Rick Steves and Samantha Brown. And I think those are the 2 best known travel hosts. So I realized that oftentimes again, a lot of people of color don't necessarily see themselves abroad or traveling. And I noticed it online too. And so there were certain Latina travelers or African American travelers, and that was like their calling card, that they were people of color who traveled. And then I started thinking about it. I was like, well, when do you learn or know about travel? I've been fortunate because my mom was from Puerto Rico, my dad's from the Dominican Republic, and I traveled since I was a kid. A lot of people don't have that opportunity. So I was like, I think if they start learning about it in school through their study abroad programs, that'd be great. And then I kept thinking, I was like, why not have a show about documenting these students on their study abroad programs, really try and focus on, when I can, the BIPOC kids, so that the kids watching at home can see kids like them traveling to Paris, traveling to Italy, traveling to China, traveling all over the world, and get inspired to become global citizens. I think a lot of things are happening politically in the world. If kids aren't aware of it, they're hearing it. They're hearing it from their parents, or they're seeing it online, and they have no idea truly, what it's like in a different country. When you had Trump in his presidency talking about the people in China and talking about people in the islands and speaking about them in a negative manner, people will probably tend to believe that. But if you're actually going to those countries and seeing these people in their element, you start to think differently. And I really wanted people to see that and learn about that and be interested in traveling. So that's how Globe Scholars came to be. And the pilot episode, I documented kids going to Cuba from St. Peter's University in New Jersey. And the pilot episode went pretty well. It had its challenges, but it wasn't as difficult to put together as I thought it would be. When you work in television, for those that don't know, you need an entire crew, videographers, audio people, producers, graphics, the whole 9 yards. It was me and a videographer. That was it. And we managed to put together a half an hour show. And I taught myself skills that I didn't have. There was only one videographer. Who do you think the other videographer was? Me. Who did I hire to edit? Nobody. I taught myself how to edit, producing the thing, writing the thing. So I assumed all these different roles just to see if I could. And like I said, the pilot was well received. Decided to reach out to somebody from Brooklyn College because they had a study abroad in South Korea program. I was like, oh, that sounds like it would be pretty cool. He agreed to let me go on the shoot. I was gone for like 2 weeks. Came back with 3 episodes because I learned, I got smarter. Because when I did the Cuba episode, I only did 1 episode. And I was like, had I thought about it, I could have gotten 2 or 3 episodes out of that. So when I went to Korea, I'm like, I'm there for 2 weeks. Let me see if I can get 2 episodes. And I ended up getting 3. And so that's how it's been building. And then one of those episodes got nominated for an Emmy. So I was like, this is great. I got to keep doing this. But it's difficult to do because it requires my free time outside of here to do it. And then you got to come back. You got to look at all the footage. And then I am not a great editor, but I'm editing the show. And so, you're looking at that and it's giving me another skill that I think just makes me a better producer, because you just start thinking differently and approaching the work differently. And I think what I've learned doing Globe Scholars enhances what I do here at CUNY-TV and makes me a better producer here. So both things kind of go hand in hand. Every time I think like there's nothing else for you to learn or for you to become better at, there is. So that's been an interesting journey, if you will. And then the one that I literally I finished editing was Spain. And it's weird too, because I didn't even reach out to this program. They reached out to me. This was a gap year program that it's called Spain by Train, and they go through Spain for 3 months. And of course, I can't be with them for 3 months. So I'm like, I could be with you for a week or 2. And so they told me a point in their itinerary where they thought it would be beautiful for us to go and document. And we did it, and I was able to get 3 episodes out of that as well. So now I know I can go for a week or 2 and get multiple episodes as long as I have everything thought out well ahead of time.
I think what we've heard today from you is, in terms of advice, is perseverance.
Yeah,
for sure. Organization, absolutely. And don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to try things. Don't be afraid to branch out on your own. Don't be afraid to take time, if you can find it, to do things on your own, to step out of your comfort zone and take that on. So I have one last question that doesn't really apply to your shows or your work so much as kind of a fun little question. Do you have a favorite movie that you've watched, current or not, that you felt connected you in some way, that inspired you, that made you stop and think?
3 come to mind. 2 are related. 1 is not. 1 obviously is West Side Story. not having seen people like myself in film or on TV growing up. So seeing that movie, and I'm talking about the Natalie Wood one, seeing that was special. Although at the time, I didn't realize that most of the principal actors were not Latino. Only Rita Moreno was at the time. Yeah. But still, the topic was of interest to me. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. I would like to see more of that. And I never really did see more of that. And that is kind of what started the course for me in doing what I do. Because when did I see that movie? I was a little girl, probably like 8 or 9. And, I wanted to play Maria. And I realized when I was older, Anita was the better role. So I was kind of like, those types of things. So that was one movie. Yeah, that was one movie that struck a chord. And then the other ones are 2 Mel Brooks movies, Young Frankenstein and History of the World Part 1. And those 2 movies, just because they're irreverent, he's having fun. And that's something that I think is really important. No matter what you do, have fun. And he showed he's delivering something that grossed well in the theater, was a lot of fun. The actors were having fun. He, as a director, was having fun. And most importantly, the audience was having fun. I try to do both. I try to have fun at work. And I think that's the Mel Brooks influence. And then trying to elevate what I'm familiar with and the people that I'm familiar with. And I think the two have married one another. And that's what kind of drives me and has shaped me in the world of media.
One last question that I'm going to throw at you. A person you interviewed who you were in awe of and or inspired by.
One of the last ones, Chita Rivera. I mean, I almost cried, but I had to control myself during that interview. You can kind of see it. Like, if you know me well, you can see it in my face. And I was like, because a lot of people revere Rita Moreno, and rightfully so, but there'd be no Rita Moreno without Chita Rivera. And I don't know if a lot of people realize that. And so having an opportunity like that to interview someone who is the reason why I am where I am in my career. I'm not worldwide or known nationally like, she was, but it's because of women like that allow you and me and a lot of other people to have and had the roles that we've had in our careers. I got a chance to interview Lauren Bacall. That was like a dream. It was like, for me, I'm 6 degrees away from Humphrey Bogart. I'm 6 degrees away from like all these other people that she's been in film with. And that's a big deal because stars of that era are very different than stars of the current era because they have that mystique. Because since everything is online, you know everything about everybody. You didn't know anything about the people from that point in time. So when I have opportunities to interview people like that for me is like extremely fulfilling. And one last one that was interesting, that was after Chita Rivera, which was, I think, this past year, was a woman named Nelly Galan. So back in the early 90s, she was it. She was like the Norman Lear of Latinos in television. Everybody went to Nelly Galan. And I got to do an interview with her. Now, you oftentimes will get an opportunity to meet your role models. And it might be a great opportunity and it may not be all that either. But it's interesting because you end up realizing that they're people just like you. They had perseverance. They had dreams. They had discipline. They had all those qualities that got them to where they wanted to go, and that you find yourself emulating, whether you realize it or not. And then I think as I've gotten older, I've like come to realize these things, and I find that interesting.
I have 3. I'll be real fast. Audrey Hepburn. Taught me about grace and graciousness. Betty Davis, who taught me it was okay to be a tough broad. And President Jimmy Carter.
Oh, wow.
Who taught me about charm and sensitivity. Those are my 3. So,
and it's interesting because all those qualities you demonstrate today.
Thank you. Our time is up, and I'm sorry about that because I could, of course, talk to you. Usually we do, but there's a glass of wine involved, so we'll pick up at a later time on that. But thank you, Tinabeth, host and creator, host, writer, and producer of LATiNAS, which airs on CUNY-TV and can be found on their YouTube channel for those of you, and their website, and also host and creator of Globe Scholars, which is on YouTube.
It's not on YouTube. It airs on PBS. But I think what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to have it on a streamer.
Good. Okay. All right. So thank you again, Tinabeth. It's always lovely to talk with you, and I appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you for having me.
Consistency, communication, it's like a lost art of living.